Hey, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of AngularAir. I'm your host, Justin, and on today's episode, we've got some exciting guests. We've got some interns from the Angular team that we get to talk to, chat with, talk about their experience, kind of see how they got into it and what was it all about. So should be a pretty exciting insight into that, and can't wait to meet them and talk about that. But first, let's start off, say hi to our panelists, and then we'll meet our guests, and then we'll get on with the content. Joining us today, we've got Alyssa with us. Alyssa, how's it going?
Hi, I'm so excited.
Yes, yes. And Bonnie's here with us. Bonnie, how's it going?
It's going great. Good to be here.
Yes. And Bonnie, when we had Jeremy on a little bit ago, and he mentioned the intern work that was being done, I think you prompted, hey, we need to do an intern episode. So
yeah, I'm the instigator around here. I said, bring them to us. We want to meet them. And here you are.
The curator of content. Yes, very much. Appreciate it. Mike's with us. Mike, how's it going?
Not too bad. Haven't been on my computer for a bit, but excited to be back on the line.
Where you been, Mike?
Around, taking a little time off.
That's awesome.
It's good that you came back for AngularAir this episode, so that's good.
Want to miss
it. All right. Let's say hi to our guests, the interns. We'll go one at a time. Andy, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Very happy to have you here. Do you want to tell our viewers a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Andy. I'm a second degree student at the University of Toronto studying computer science and math. And this is actually my first internship and my first time working with Angular. In the past, I've worked with React and Rails on the back end.
Nice, nice. And Gloria is joining us. Gloria, how's it going?
Hi, hello. My name is Gloria, and I am a rising senior at the University of Southern California. This is also my first time working with Angular. I was a developer relations intern on the Angular team.
So I have a goal for this episode. My goal is to no longer use the term the interns, and we can just use Andy and Gloria going forward. And hopefully everybody watching will look at that as well, because it seems a little labeled and what have you. I know that's a title, but still, at the same time, Gloria and Andy, that's what I want to go with.
Mike, you do look refreshed.
I feel refreshed.
I love it. I love it.
Nice. I second that. I think that sounds good. All right. So Andy and Gloria, we're excited to learn kind of more about this experience that you went through. Maybe we can start off with talking about how you came to go into this internship, right? Like, was it something you sought out? Was it something that you had earmarked, that sort of thing? Like, how did you get into it? Maybe we can start. We'll just go in order of the cameras here. So I guess Andy and then Gloria.
Yeah, sure. So I did seek out an internship at Google. Obviously, everybody wants to do an internship at Google. But interestingly enough, Angular wasn't on my plate. Like I said, I had experience with React, so I haven't worked with Angular before, so I didn't really consider it. And prior to the whole COVID situation, I was actually supposed to be a SRE intern on the ads team in Ireland. And literally the Friday before I started, I got Jeremy's email saying like, hey, here's your new host. And then on Monday, I was introduced to the project.
Was that
Very
like
cool.
startling or scary because you had like expectations of being on this team and you're like, pivot?
It was a bit scary and a bit startling. I was kind of surprised why they would throw me on like the Angular team. I thought that perhaps it was something because they don't really have any room or anywhere else or anything, because not having any experience with it. And I think the reason I was on the SRE team is because I had some Go experience. But the rest of the team was great. Jeremy was great, and he really helped me through learning Angular. So it was a good experience overall.
Nice, nice. Gloria, how about you?
So for me, similar to what Andy said, I didn't really have Angular experience. So actually, for me, I took part in a Google program, Google Code U, now called Software Product Sprint. And this program solidified my love for web development. So after doing this program and like creating web apps with like my team, I then did a couple projects around like web development, and I also taught like middle schoolers how to create their own like web applications. So after doing all that, after the Google program, I was like, okay, like I want to intern at Google. Like I'm ready. Like Google, the Code U experience was such a fun experience. Loved the people, loved the Googlers. So I was like, okay, like I would want to intern at Google. So I applied for like different positions catered around like web development. And I'm also like a people's person, and I didn't want to code all the time. So I found the position for developer relations, and it fit really well with what I wanted to do. So I applied and got on the Angular team.
So that's really interesting. You had the opportunity to apply not only for like development type stuff, but relations type stuff.
Yeah.
That was an option. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Nice. And so
I've heard the Angular team say that because Angular's, it's powerful, but it's a bit difficult. And I know that they've been very interested in the training experience and like onboarding a brand new developer who's never seen Angular before and trying to make that experience more welcoming and engaging. And so I think it's good so they kind of want people without any Angular experience to come in and they can see you learning it for the first time and understand kind of the sticking points where they can make it better documentation or something to make that easier.
And it's a little bit harder to find people without that intro experience. So Gloria had to reach all the way down into the middle school level to find those people who don't have that experience. No, I'm just teasing. But I am curious, what was the experience like working with people as young as middle schoolers, trying to teach them some sort of development skills?
It wasn't that bad because I was just teaching them like the basic like HTML, CSS. So they really enjoyed the fact that they were able to make like their own website, I guess. So they were really like focused. I mean, they're like middle schoolers, so obviously like there's like a lot of goofing around here and there, but they were really interested in the idea of like making their own like websites and like showing it to their parents. So yeah, it was an overall really cool and fun experience.
I used to give my kids coding. I got my kids started with HTML and CSS when they were like 9, 10, 11, like right before junior high. And they did it for a while and then they quit it for a long time. But I wanted them to like have that early success just so they could know like, hey, coding's not that hard, because I didn't want it to seem because I know for a long time, I didn't even consider being a developer because I thought developers were like just some kind of like geniuses that were smarter than the rest of us. Like I didn't even think about it. And then when I actually started learning development, you just learn it a little bit at a time and it's hard as a beginner, but it gets easier as you go. And it's not like they're just some crazy geniuses. That's not, but I felt that way. And I think introducing kids to coding very early makes it not so scary. And then it's easier for them to come and figure it out later. At least I thought.
Yeah, I had that same experience. So in high school, I tried to teach myself Python in like grade 6 or 7. I taught myself HTML, where I was like, yeah, I'm not smart enough for this. This is a whole other thing, so I'm just not going to do it. But then,
and then it takes you like 10 years to try again and go back and say, no, I can do this. I wish I had done it when I was younger.
Exactly. Like I had no one to really drive me into it or push me into it. But then I eventually ended up finding a project, something that I wanted to build. And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to teach myself Python. And that really is what drove me. So finding something that you want to do.
Yeah, I think that's great. So Gloria, you were working with junior high kids?
Middle school, like 6th grade, through the coding school, the program.
That's so fun. That's the perfect age.
Yeah.
So coming on board and learning Angular on the fly, there's a lot of stuff to learn, right? You mentioned HTML and CSS, but there's also the whole JavaScript, TypeScript part. Did you come into it already knowing some of that and having a good grasp on that, or did you have to learn kind of that as well at the same time?
So I came into it with the React background. So I was familiar with HTML, a bit of CSS, JavaScript. I had worked full-time for about 3 years at that point. So TypeScript, JavaScript wasn't the challenge for me. The challenge was wrapping my mind and doing things a different way. I did React for such a long time and switching to things like dependency injection and using templates and being able to use directives to add behavior. That's something that just doesn't exist in the React world, and I just found that really cool.
No, like similar, same thing with me. Didn't really have the Angular background. I knew like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. For me, like my onboarding, on the Angular website, there is this like tutorial, this project that I did to just familiarize myself with the framework. And like I watched a bunch of like different YouTube videos, trying to teach myself like concepts here and there. So.
Cool.
Was there a favorite that you had that you figured out that you got work?
No, no.
Struggled with something and you got it working and you got really happy?
Wait, so for the YouTube videos or for the tutorial?
Well, for me, it was directives. When I first started with AngularJS, I did the ng repeat, right? And I was like all ng this and ng that, and I was just rocking and rolling. But when I had to make a custom directive, it really stopped me in my tracks, and it took me a while. But once I finally got it working, it was really powerful, and I used it a lot. But that first time, it was like, man. So did you have any moments like that where you struggled with something, but then you got it working and got happy?
So for my first project, I struggled a lot with custom elements, like a lot, different errors. I like Googled them up trying to figure out, okay, like what is, like, how do I solve this error? Found different implementations, tried it, didn't work. So, but I eventually figured it all out. Like you said, powerful tool. But custom elements really, really did a thing on me. So.
But you got it working.
Yeah, no, I got it working. So we're all good there.
That's good. That's good.
Cool. Hey, Andy, did you have anything like that you encountered?
No specific Angular related topic. The most challenging part for me was dealing with Vue Engine and Ivy. So having to support both things, and especially because my project revolved around a lot around overlays, having to deal with how Ivy treats it versus how Vue Engine treats it, and then trying to get dependency injection to work, everything. That was sort of the big thing of trying 20 different ways of doing it and realizing, yeah, you just can't do it.
It's interesting to hear this too, because it's like, I mean, like when we talk about the web platform, things change so rapidly, right? As we know, so the shelf life of things, or the term before we find something new is so rapid that it's, at any given moment that you come in time, it's going to look different. And so as you're talking about like the experience with working with Ivy and things like that, there's that Angular scenario of learning that, but then there's also this timeline of just, less than a year ago, that thing you're talking about in Ivy wasn't really something that we were dealing with, right? So now at this moment that you interned, it was on the plate at that moment. So it's just interesting to kind of think about that. Cool. So how long, so you got your internship, like how long did that last? Is it just over the summer? Is it a couple months, that sort of thing? Like what's that experience like?
Yeah, so my internship was May 11th, and then I'm done this Friday, so August 28th. Typically internships are, I think, around 12 weeks, but I don't know specifically why I ended up getting the 16. During my initial interview, they just kind of asked me, how long do you want to stay? And I just said, my exams end on this date and I have to be at school at this date, so whatever works for you. And then I think my initial host just kind of asked for the maximum, and then I ended up transferring over.
Hey, Andy, Eric wants to know about the overlays. He wants to know if you tried that Angular CDK overlay.
I didn't work specifically with the overlays directly. I did end up working with the overlay classes, so using it at a lower level, which was quite interesting. So wanting to be able to affect the dependency injector, the thing that you're opening, was a big thing that I wanted to do, because my project involved menus. And menus are open separately in different overlays. And so wanting to push something from one to the other was a big challenge.
And did you get it working?
Yes. But as I mentioned before, there was some limitations in Vue Engine. And there's some features that they want to add in order to make that cleaner. But yeah, ultimately it ended up working.
I think being a programmer is half about being stubborn.
Yeah, I think a lot of times I'll struggle and sit there for like 4 hours at something, walk away, just clear my mind about something. And then once you look at the problem again, you just kind of have that aha moment. But yeah, you definitely have to keep fighting through it and keep fighting through it and trying different things.
I love that, Bonnie. Are you more stubborn than the bug?
Sometimes you gotta be.
I used to
Gloria,
tell
how about
people.
your experience and how long were you an intern?
I was an intern for about like 2 and some months. I started June 1st. Last Friday was my last day. It was my overall experience. It was a really worthy experience. I learned a lot. With it being a remote, it wasn't, the conventional, internship, but overall I still learned a lot, got a lot from it. Planning on creating a web application utilizing Angular, so I can like work on my skills here and there. So.
And did you, like, when you thought about, okay, I want to do this internship, I want to get in there and experience this, right? Did you come to that realization, like, during this time of the pandemic where you kind of knew that, like, that experience would be remote? Or did you already have this idea ahead of that you're like, I want to do this internship, and part of it is going to be the fact that I can work around this team and experience being next to these people, and then all of a sudden the pandemic and now the experience changed as a result? And how did you deal with that if that was the case?
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Andy.
For me, it was the latter. So we didn't really find out until we were going remote until sometime in, I think, late April-ish. We ended up getting the email. So I already had my team set up back from something like December. So at that stage, I already had the flight tickets booked and the Airbnb booked in Ireland. But despite the fact that we changed late, I think it was handled really well. I had a lot of fun on the team, and it was really interesting.
Yeah, so for me, I didn't really have like my place. I didn't really find a place to stay yet. I was still like searching for apartments in like the San Jose area, since I was going to be in the Sunnyvale office. Didn't really find a place, which I felt lucky because I didn't have to buy an apartment and all that. Similar to what Andy said. But I didn't know it was going to be remote. My recruiter, Michael, was telling me that, yeah, like the internship is going to be remote. And I was like, is there a way that I can still come to the office? Is there a way that I can still like meet my teammates, like, visit the campus? And he was like, no, due to, COVID and like health and all that. So I was a little bit like bummed about that. But after doing the experience, like remote, it honestly was still a great experience. So it didn't really matter if I was on campus or if I wasn't. So
nice.
So with the timing of each of your internships ended or just about ended, do you plan on having any involvement in the Angular community, potentially joining the Angular team? I'm not sure what that status is or what you're looking at moving forward.
So I would like to contribute a little bit during school. However, unfortunately, I don't know how much time I'm going to have. So my classes were originally supposed to be partially online, partially in person, but unfortunately, they ended up switching to full online, which are a little bit tougher. So we'll see. I mean, if I have time, I would definitely like to.
Awesome.
For me, I'm already currently working on a project, utilizing the framework. So just like working on my project, just like I said, to just familiarize myself with the framework. But similar to Andy said, school has already started like last week, the same week as like the end of my internship. So I've been like really, really busy. So yeah.
All right, so we talked about this technology need, the understanding of HTML, CSS, all that stuff, and you come in and learn the Angular things and stuff like that. I have a question about just workflow and procedures. Like when we talk about committing source code and things like Git and, repos and mono repos and the procedure there at Google as you went through and worked on that code. Was that a big difference for you as you came in, or did you already kind of have some idea of or experience of how Google handles that stuff and it kind of fit, or was that another challenge on top of the mix as well?
So I already had experience with Git from previous work, so I was familiar with Git, with GitHub. I've contributed a little bit to React, and I have some open source projects, so I'm fine with Git. However, as virtual interns, we actually don't have access to Google's internal systems. So one of the big things when they went virtual was they had to find open source projects. Only returning interns, some returning interns ended up getting access to Google's internal systems, and they're the ones that had to deal with all that. But everyone else was just only on GitHub pretty much. And then anything that's synced internally, obviously, is just dealt with by Jeremy and all the other caretakers. So we're hands off with that.
Yeah, I had experience with Git. For my internship, didn't really use GitHub as much since I was more so working on like community outreach for my second project. For my first project, I just pushed my code onto GitHub. As far as like comments, I would just like meet up with my host and just like talk about it then. Gotcha.
So it's almost like just an external community member contributing to the Angular team through GitHub. That kind of flow would be how you get that code in there and stuff. Okay.
Exactly. So we were kind of like externals, but we did have the benefit of having access to a Googler. So being able to speak daily with our hosts, we had daily one-on-ones, being part of all of the meetings that go with it. So a bit more involved, but yeah.
Cool. Now, Gloria, you mentioned before we started that you have a presentation to share with kind of, I think you mentioned it goes over some of the stuff that you worked on.
Yeah. So the presentation's a little bit about like the two projects that I worked on and like a little live demo on my first project that I would like to share with you guys.
Cool. All right, so let's do this. Andy, why don't we talk about what you worked on? We'll discuss that, and then we'll switch over and we'll do the presentation. Gloria, you can do that presentation right after that. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so Andy, what did you get a chance to work on while you're there that you could share?
Well, I mean, Angular being open source, I can pretty much share everything, I think. So my focus was around menus and just the general menu interaction pattern. The major focus was on the CDK menu functionality, which is currently in CDK experimental. So you can go check it out. But mainly it involved just defining all of the behaviors that drive menus and all menu interaction. So things like standalone menus, which is the typical kind of implementation of map menu right now. Menu bars, which is kind of what you see in a Google Docs-like application. So, you have like file edit, that kind of thing. Context menus, which are right-click menus, and then also adding a sort of more intelligent way of closing out menus. So if you've ever used a sort of naive menu system, if you ever hover down into a sub-menu, sometimes they close out, so you have to have a very sort of specific and direct like mouse movement so that you don't close them out, almost like a maze. So basically, I implemented something that avoids that gives you a more natural pattern. And then from that, I built out the material implementation of the map menu bar and menu bar item. And the eventual goal is for map menu to be refactored to use what I built so that everything can work together.
It's a lot of stuff to cover during that time.
Yeah, if you have any questions about Angular menus, I'm your expert.
Deep knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't catch it. Was that a combination of CDK work as well? So the underlying logic would be CDK and then the menu would be on top of that? Or was it all done at the Angular material level?
So it was all actually done at the CDK level. So all of the behaviors driving it were done at the CDK level. And then the material menu is just literally the template, just the view. So there's no real behavior logic behind that. Which was the goal because, like I said, they want to refactor the existing map menu so that everything can work together and you have just a baseline of the behaviors, just like CDK table and map table.
It's awesome. Did you end up writing a lot of unit tests as well, coverage while you were doing that? Or was there already
Yeah.
ones there and you just kind of had to make sure they pass?
No, so there weren't any tests. I had to pretty much do everything from scratch. So one of the benefits of my project was it was very sort of, it was end to end. It wasn't like I was adding into something. I was creating something new from scratch. And so, yeah, I had to write all the tests. I had a lot of say in the design and the overall layout and how things work together. But luckily, there was some existing map menu tests in there. So I got to see how things were done. Like that was another challenge, figuring out how to do that type of testing in Angular and getting a work around Jasmine. So that helped a lot.
Nice. And was that the only project that you worked on during that time?
Yeah, so it was menu focused. It was the CDK behaviors. It was the material side of extending it, the menu aim, and then context menus.
Very cool. Very cool. And did that, did it ship? Is it part of the live or is it still the process of getting ready to?
Yeah, so it's in CDK experimental right now. So whoever wants to try it out can play with it. And I think the next steps are for it to go in front of the GDEs to get feedback to see whether it's correctly implemented and works correctly. And then eventually, hopefully, it'll shift over to CDK, regular CDK.
That's super exciting. That's super exciting. That's cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's interesting to have it in front of, I think there's 1.6 million Angular developers. That's a stat that I read.
So how do you predict that you'll feel the day that it's live and people actually start having it in their production applications, the code that you wrote?
It's funny. I was kind of thinking about that a couple of days ago. I remember when I first started like putting my code out there on GitHub. I was always you're always kind of nervous at the beginning. Like, is my code good enough? Everybody's going to see out there that I suck. But then once you start getting comfortable with it, and then like whenever I would push out a new project that I was working on, I would look at the stats and be like, why is no one looking at this? So it's going to be different having an actual audience viewing it right away. I'm viewing it right now, so it's going to be quite exciting.
I think that that's one of the pretty amazing aspects of getting the opportunity to internship there, right? Is that you could write code and you can publish code and maybe you can get it in front of a bunch of people, but like doing it through Google and through the Angular framework, you have this opportunity built in that is going to reach a lot of people, right? So you get that kind of experience as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, you get that immediate feedback. I remember during my initial code reviews, I was a bit taken aback with all the comments that I received. So it was really everyone really looks at a lot of the details, which is interesting and fun.
But it's interesting because you're writing the code and you're just like, all right, it's a class. All right, I write some functions and set some properties, and okay, yeah, that's not that big a deal. I'm doing a little bit here, and then you put, like you said, you push out your pull request, and it's like, all right, cool, I finally got that merge. It's great. Look at me go. And then a little while later, you'll sit back and be like, wait a minute, my code was merged, and how many installs does this replicate or this repo have? Oh, that's a lot. So did I do everything right? And you start second guessing yourself. There's a little bit of a mental game you play with that of, oh, I hope I didn't mess up a whole lot of people and cost them time when they're doing their work. So it's an interesting mindset to be able to contribute to something as large as Angular.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. All right, Gloria, excited to hear what you were able to work on.
Yeah. So
I know I was excited. You said she should show it, and then you said in a minute. You teased us. It's like, okay, it's time for Gloria. No, wait, it's time for Andy. But it's time for Gloria.
Okay, so let me. So I just share my screen.
Okay.
And the GDE's got a sneak peek at this presentation a week or two ago, and I got to tell you, I was very impressed with Gloria.
Thank you.
Well, now who's setting it up for the excitement? You're contributing.
But it's time. But we don't have to wait this time, so it's okay.
That's a good point. It's valid.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me know if you guys.
We need Justin to click. Justin, can you click her screen in with all of us here?
Yeah, just waiting for. There it is. Okay.
Okay.
Got it.
What can you guys see?
All right.
Gloria, what did you do? Internship.
We see number
That's
10.
what we see.
Okay. Let me.
So you see your the slide app.
Okay.
Yeah, that's much more useful than just reading things. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay.
You can, Bonnie?
No,
'Cause
not
I see
yet. Not
darkness.
yet. Sorry. That was a premature yes. Yeah. Don't listen to me, Gloria.
Is it sharing the right? If you have
Our
multiple
feedback
monitors
loop is
happening?
horrible.
I know. We just have darkness, so I'm
Oh,
wondering
darkness? Okay.
I'm wondering if you have like multiple monitors and it's going to a different screen, or
I have one monitor. Sorry. Give
Okay.
me 1 second. Sorry, you guys.
That's all right. No worries.
You got this, Gloria. We believe in you.
Thank you.
If it doesn't want to bring that up too, you could always just leave the slide app open and go through them that way too. That'd be fine as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that then.
I just keep thinking of how bummed I would have been as Andy if I already had my B&B in Ireland booked.
Right?
Man.
Yeah, I had the flight tickets and everything. But luckily, because of coronavirus, I ended up getting refunds. So.
Still though, 16 weeks in Ireland. Come on, how cool! That would have been awesome.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't do remote next year and things improve.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get to go to the Bay Area or New York.
Sorry, guys. I'm having technical difficulties. Okay. Okay, cool. Okay. Okay, so okay.
There you go.
So for my 2 projects, before I got into like my 2 projects, I was talking to my host and I wanted to like circle my projects around students, like student developers, novice developers, because like I said before, like I was teaching students how to create their own websites. I am a student developer, so I really have like a passion and interest with working with student developers. So my first project, I created like an interactive tutorial. So basically what I did was I took some parts of the tutorial on the Angular website and I made it parallel to the project, the editor on StackBlitz. In a couple of seconds, I'm going to show you like a live demo. But what I did was I like stripped the content from the Angular website, made it more interactive friendly, made it more like easy to the eye, not a lot of words for like the developer. And the reason why we like decided to create this like interactive tutorial is because we didn't really want the developers to flip back and forth from the Angular website back to StackBlitz and then back to the Angular website. We wanted everything to just be on like one page, so it would be just efficient and more easier for the developers. So on your right, you'd have like the guide, the tutorial walking the developer through like the steps as to like what they should do to create this application. Let me share with you guys the demo real quick. Okay, So here, as you can see, you're staring at like Stacklets. So on the right, we have the interactive, like the homepage, the welcome page, explaining to the developers, this is what you're going to be doing. This is a guide walking you through a simple e-commerce site. So they get coding. So here you have the guide explaining to them like, okay, like what you're staring at an online IDE called Stacklets. Explaining like what they're looking at, some tips here and there. You can also like expand it, collapse. Step 1, like open the file. Step 2, modify the product, like modify the file. I have the option of copying the code here, pasting it on to the editor. Also, or the developer can just like type it out. Another reason why we decided to do this project is because everyone like learns differently. So for the Angular website, the learners or the student developers have the option of like copying the code and then pasting it on here. But some students would rather just type it out themselves because they can like retain the information a lot better. So with this option, they can just choose like type out the code without having to copy and paste the code, although the option of doing so is still provided. And yeah, so just a little interactive guide, just like walking them through how to create their own mini like web application using the framework. And then sorry with all the things.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool.
Okay, let's see. And then for my second project, okay, so
I really like that interactive tutorial. It reminds me of Codecademy. When I was first learning programming, it was super helpful. I like that, doing it and right there.
Yeah, no, because for me, I did the tutorial on the Angular website just so I can like understand the framework and get used to it. And I did like I did struggle with like flipping back and forth from the pages, trying to figure out like what I missed or trying to understand like what I'm doing. So having it like parallel to like where I'm typing, it made it so much easier, I guess. Like it
feels cohesive.
Yeah. So I'm so glad that I, was given the opportunity to just do that. And then for my second project, it was more community like outreach. So what I did was I reached out to different computer science student programs and was trying to see if they would want to, integrate Angular into their curriculum. The reason why we decided to do this is because I just felt like we needed to expand the Angular community, reach newer communities. So I thought like what better community than like the student community. So reaching out to these student programs, like telling them like, yo, like we believe that, you guys should include Angular into your curriculum so other students can, learn about Angular, create cool applications using the framework so they can like later see the value in Angular as they continue to create more and more different projects. So I reached out to about like 20, 25 different programs. And these programs, Developer Student Club, CSI Program, Google Code U, Udacity, Codecademy, Digital Crafts. So these were the programs that reached out and were really interested in like partnering with like the Angular team and having Angular content within their program, which I was really excited about. So yeah. So yeah, that's basically my two projects that I have done during my internship.
Nice.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And so the those programs that you were reached out to, right?
Mhm.
In terms of like actual school systems or whatnot, is that more like kind of college curriculum type reach out, or because you talked about doing the elementary and stuff like that? Did you look into that as well, or?
Yeah, so I looked into like all types of like different programs. Some programs that I looked into were catered towards like elementary students, and I just felt like their type of, I feel like Angular wouldn't really fit with their type of like content because it was more game-like, a lot of like interactive games. So I more so focused on programs that offered like courses, like different types of courses on like JavaScript, HTML, React, Vue, that I felt like Angular content can also be included in their program curriculum. So I reached out to those specific type of programs.
Nice. Yeah, I've been kind of curious about like what would the process be if you were to reach out, like say you wanted to get this type of stuff in high schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, when you talk about clubs or other services online that have these courses, it's kind of, you have a direct, this is who I contact, this is where I query about that, right? But like if you're going to go to the school system and try and get that, like who do you reach out to, I wonder, and go that process?
Yeah, so I didn't really, so I more so focused on like online programs, given like the time frame that I had, because I started this second project like with 3 weeks left of my internship. So I didn't, yeah, so I didn't really have time to, you know, go out to like different high schools and like, you know, pitch the idea out to them. So I'm also just focused on like programs that were, you know, online, and also had a large like outreach, because that was another factor into like figuring out these programs, their numbers and like how many students that they reach. Because like the focus for the second project was, you know, expanding the Angular community, reaching newer communities. So the programs that, you know, targeted a lot of students was the program that I, you know, sought after.
Makes sense. So I know Andy and Gloria, you both talked about, you know, going back to school now, doing some other stuff that you've got on your plate. What do you envision in terms of like long-term future? Like, did you come out of this even more excited about things like building for the web and being in this space? And what do you think, like, how did it change your approach of your future plans based on this experience?
Yeah, so I had experience using the actual tools, not working on the tools. So this definitely changed my perspective, being able to actually contribute to the things that other people use. And it made me more excited because I can actually have an impact on people that are making an impact, rather than just being sort of isolated in one area. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'd like to come back to do. I'd like to be able to come back and perhaps work on the Angular framework for my next internship.
So for me, I did a lot of like utilizing, you know, like creating web apps utilizing the framework. So I hope to, you know, work more with like the ends of Angular, similar to like what Andy was working on with his project. So I can have like a better understanding of like the ins and outs of Angular. So.
Nice.
I have a question. I want to slide in with a question because I just don't want us to run out of time, Justin, if that's okay. And this was a question that I wanted to ask this anyway, but also Fateh asked this in the chat, and so I thought it was a really important question. What advice do you guys have for people who want to get an internship at Google? Obviously, you know something because you got it. So what advice would you give? Like, are there any tips that you have for somebody who would want an opportunity like that?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I don't think there's any specific tips that'll get you in there. I think having a broad range of experiences, like I had mentioned, I'd come back to school, so I already had a degree in business, and I had some work experience. So I think that made me an eligible candidate, sort of maybe stand out from everyone else. Yeah, I don't think there's one specific way to get there. Show off your work and yeah, get good grades.
So for me, like I agree with what Andy was saying. Also, just, you know, getting, like, doing what you love, like continually doing what you love. So for me, I love like web applications, and I created like different types of like web like applications. So just continuing like making projects, doing what you love, and just like showcasing that, like on your resume or like in your interviews or whatnot.
Yeah, I'll just add to what Gloria said. Sorry. Doing what you love, yeah. So that's gonna help you sort of really put your best effort into whatever it is that you're doing. I think that's how you're going to stand out the best way. So don't try and follow what someone else did, because you may not like doing what they did and what got them there, and you're not going to do it as well.
And be bold.
Yeah, I think those are great points. I think one of the benefits of focusing on doing what you love is it also can help direct you into the right internship to pick, right? Because you may look and go, hey, I want to learn this web stuff. These ones do that. But if you get in and start kind of understanding where your passion is, maybe it's like animation, or maybe it's doing this sort of thing, then that can help reveal to you where maybe you get the most value out of targeting this internship versus that, right? For sure.
Yeah, and have an open mind.
Journey though that we're on, all of us, right? Even from the beginning till the end of time that we're here is always trying to figure out, like, refining that excitement and that love of what you're targeting, right? I don't know. At least for me, I'm still on that journey.
It's never something where you plot the full course up front. Traffic happens and you need to reroute with the GPS as things change throughout your course. But as long as you find yourself,
that's like what Andy said with the flexibility.
I do have a question. I have a question about the internships that you had that weren't necessarily Angular specific. I know it's maybe a little bit more difficult with being fully remote, but did you have any interesting experiences you'd like to share? Not so much with the Angular team or with Angular in general, but with Google outside of Angular.
Did you get the little spinny hat?
Yes, I did. I have it somewhere over here.
Can we see it?
We ask the important questions.
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know. You get bonus points if you put it on, Andy. Not that you need them, but look at that. That's so
I didn't
great.
even know that was a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah, and a backpack.
Yeah.
Like a backpack too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and if you
That's
start
very
as
cool.
if you start as a full-timer instead of intern, you get Googler, I think.
Does it look the same? Like
Yeah.
With the spinny thing? That's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, other experiences outside of Angular. I think the remote aspect was interesting. I had worked remote before, but my intention of doing an internship and going to Google was to actually be there and to learn from other people. But I think Google overall handled it really well. I really liked their weekly talks. So they had a leadership speaker series. So we got to listen to people like Vince Cerf, Susan from YouTube, and all these different experts in their areas to talk about how they got to where they are and sort of their views on where the future of technology is going.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely what Andy said, the Google Talks. Remote, for me, it made it a little, I guess, difficult reaching out to, a lot of people, reaching out to, just reaching out in general, given that it's remote. So I definitely utilized the chats, Google Chats. I'm a part of different group chats, so just constantly just reading what is going on, what people are saying in the chats was something that I spent a lot of my time on. And also I reached out to a couple DevRel interns. Surprisingly, there weren't a lot of DevRel interns, which I found really interesting. So just reaching out to them and just talking and seeing what they were doing compared to what projects I was doing. So
yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. That's intriguing to me that they now have this opportunity to do internship around DevRel, which again is something I think over time, from what I've seen, is a lot of people fall into that later in their career because they kind of don't realize that that's an opportunity that you could take in the very beginning. It's kind of you go on, you learn development, you learn this other stuff, you learn management maybe, and then you get to, oh, I could do this DevRel focus, right? But I think it's exciting to think about the fact that like you can come out of the gate thinking about this opportunity to do DevRel type of stuff from the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a career option in the beginning. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, we're getting close to the top of the hour. We got a few more minutes left. Anybody have any other last question or anything they want to get in? Any of our panelists or anything that our guests want to point out?
Fergus wanted to know who's Vint Cerf, but I put a Wikipedia link in the chat.
Yeah, Google's the kind of place where you're going to meet a lot of people with Wikipedia pages.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, hey, Andy and Gloria, really appreciate you sharing your time, coming on the show and discussing all your journey with us and sharing all this insight. Really super appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
For sure, for sure. And we wish you the best on your journey going forward. And if you ever have any Angular related topics that you want to do a presentation on, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to have you on as a guest to do an entire episode on some content you want to share. So please keep us in mind if you're interested.
And Angular adjacent content, if there's anything that's not necessarily Angular specific, but we may find interesting, feel free to reach out. All right.
For sure. All right. Thanks again. Have a good one and take it easy, everyone. See ya.